Welcome to the main event.
Welcome to the All Average Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Brandon B.T. Taylor, and been a hot minute. Real hot, man. It's been about 2 months since the last show. And I mean, that's life. Hopefully, not even hopefully, I am going to record more often. Life's kind of settled down since the life change and everything. And also to help that a lot of things in pro wrestling has not been that good to a degree to talk about. Aside, I mean, the El Grande Americano match was amazing. And then that might have been the only, and Sami Zayn won the world title. Those are probably the two major things that we missed since the hiatus here. But be that as it may, we are back. And I kind of want to kick it off by getting into the state of SummerSlam right now. The SummerSlam main event, presumably Reigns, Rollins, probably night two, Punk, Rhodes, night one, and then I assume Brock and Oba are going to get the ESPN treatment again. But I don't know how you walk out of Monday Night Raw last night and say that Rollins versus Reigns should main event over Oba and Brock. I get it. World title match, understandable. But out of the three major matches, that one is the weakest right now. There's excitement for Punk and Rhodes. That's been a matchup people have been waiting for about 3 years now. Obviously, people are excited for Oba and Brock. I don't sense that same excitement for Reigns and Rollins yet again. And the way they're trying to like tell this is another like Shield storyline thing, and it's not. We've had plenty of matchups to a degree where, no offense, them being in the Shield together is practically irrelevant at this point. It's irrelevant, and and on top of that, I don't think you can really tell the Shield story because you don't have Moxley there at all. It's really more of Reigns needs to prove to himself that he can beat Rollins when it matters. And that's something that hasn't really happened yet. If I'm correct, Reigns' only one-on-one victory over Rollins happened on a Monday Night Raw. And so the story should be, can Reigns get over his boogeyman? And his boogeyman is Seth Rollins. He has not beaten Seth Rollins when it matters. Can he beat it here? And that should be it. Rollins' story, I think they told Rollins' story right. Rollins, no matter how many times you've beaten Reigns, you're not number one. You're not a number one. So that's what they should be telling there. Not, oh, they were in the Shield at one point and then revisiting their history together. Like, we know the story at this point. We know the story, even new fans at this point. They know the story. You're not catching anyone really up to speed here with that one. So that, once again, do not think you walk out of Monday Night Raw last night and people are saying, yeah, Reigns and Rollins is should be main event, and they got it right. Reigns and Rollins, Punk as the two main events. I don't sense that. I really don't. And obviously, I mean, this is just screaming, and I honestly do not remember the expression here, but I'm just screaming at an empty void here because it's clear, let's be honest, they're not gonna have Reigns and Rollins not main event. They're just not, and I get it. But from a fan perspective, I don't know how you come out of last night's show thinking that Reigns and Rollins is not the weakest of the three major matches that have been announced. And also announced last night, Penta versus Gable for the Intercontinental Championship. Should have happened 2 years ago with Gable. I'm happy it's happening now. He should win at SummerSlam. It should be his moment. Get him the IC championship, especially since now you already fumbled one guy that should have won the IC title, and that was Sheamus. He's gone now. He's gone. I honestly presume that he is probably AEW bound at some point. Wouldn't be shocked if it's as soon as this Wednesday in Boston. But it's now the time. Time is now to crown Gable. Give Gable the crown. Figure something else out with Penta. I don't think you turn Penta heel because he is a merchandise machine, especially with the mess. But Gable has to win at SummerSlam. That's clear. So on top of that, I'm happy the IC Championship is getting a one-on-one match at this event. Last Mania, it was a multi-man ladder match. I think the last time we had a one-on-one Intercontinental Championship match at a major event might have been when Gunther was champion. So that's like what, 2 years ago? So that's good development there. Liv Io, that story is just a drizzling shits right now. And I see some people trying to blame Io for it. Like, it's not Io's fault. This is not good. It's not. It's not Io's fault. I don't even necessarily think it's Liv's fault to a degree. Granted, Liv's booking since WrestleMania has been atrocious because once again, we talked about this a couple episodes back during the build to Mania of, well, because Rey Mysterio doesn't want his career against Gunther, we have no idea what we're doing with Gunther. This is the same example. Stephanie Vaquero got injured. They don't know what to do with Liv Morgan. It's pretty bad that SummerSlam is going to be her first defense, which is also probably going to be where she loses the title too. And it is one of the most under talked about, and it's now the last few days it's kind of picked up more steam now. But one of the most under talked about things probably in all of wrestling right now is the booking of the women's division in WWE. They have, and I don't care what anyone says, they have the best women's division in wrestling, just talent wise. And the booking for it has been atrocious, especially since WrestleMania. Liv barely defended. Has really the most you've done with her was the start of the Queen of the Ring because you couldn't figure anything out for her because Stephanie got hurt. That's pathetic. Rhea Ripley's reign, once again, this is a too soon kind of thing. You just pretty much hounded her as the world champion of Raw, had her involved in that for years at this point, just to immediately switch to SmackDown, give her the title immediately, and then that's been shit, and she's hard. And I say it this way, if she's not back by the Saturday Night Main Event, you strip her of that title. The division has to move on. You gotta move on. Cannot be sitting here waiting on Rhea Ripley. And then the mid-card titles are virtually irrelevant at this point. Sol Ruka will have the occasional title defense here and there, but that's really it. She's not in anything meaningful. What meaningful storyline is Sol Ruka involved in? Tiffany Stratton. They're trying, but you're just reheating the nachos here, so to say. You're putting it back in feuds with like Nia Jackson, Chelsea Green, and all this other shit, where she doesn't need to be in that. And then the women's tag titles, it honestly feels like they felt like they were waiting for Nikki to get cleared. And now you're at the point where you have the title defense this Saturday and you need to switch the belts. You have to switch titles this Saturday. You cannot have Fallon Henley and what the hell's her name? Lacey Reed. I probably butchered that, but Lacey Reed would not win in the titles this Saturday. It's already a glorified house show this weekend where you're pretty much building it around, hey, the New York Knicks are going to appear. So you can't leave this Saturday with Fatal Influence not winning the women's tag team titles. What else did they announce? SummerSlam right now. There's presumably they're going to do Gunther versus Nick Aldis. I'm for it. I honestly think Nick Aldis's return to wrestling opponent should have been Randy Orton. You had something there. I agree with Brian Alvarez to a degree. The booking of Gunther since ending Cena's career has been terrible. It is a letdown. This is a guy that you put out there to end Goldberg's career, to end John Cena's career, and to end AJ Styles' career. And what has happened since ending AJ Styles' career? Randomly thrown together match with Seth Rollins, a piss poor feud with Cody Rhodes for the title, and now he's going to wrestle the general manager of SmackDown at SummerSlam, presumably. I get it. I don't blame the detractors there for that. His booking has not been good. And I know people are going to say, what do you want? Him to win the title? No, no one's saying he has to be champion. But you can do better than what they've done so far, especially for WrestleMania. Other newsworthy item, Baron Corbin returned this past Friday. I don't get the need for Baron Corbin. I'm not like I don't hate it, but like I don't get it why he was a priority to bring back. And then Big Cass, presumably vignette yesterday, Big Cass is coming back to WWE. Question is he going to be back with Enzo on the main roster or is he on his own and Enzo's doing something in NXT? Let's jump the ship here to TNA. Been a hot minute for that shit show. They fired Tommy Dreamer. We've had countless of wrestlers leave. Steve Macklin, Tessa Blanchard, Danny Luna, Maya Grace. They fired Sammy Callahan from Creative. They fired Eric Young. So I don't know what's really TNA's end game or goal here. I do not know. Because you hit the point where you have no one besides Nick Nemeth that you can sell to fans as a world champion right now in that company. You don't have anyone. Mustafa Ali should be near that guy. He should be near it. I think after this reign, he's probably going to be elevated to the world title scene. But God knows when that is. Leon Slater, I think it's pretty clear he's leaving at some point. And they're not going to give him the world title. Mike Santana's already gone. And then you're not going back to the Moose or Eddie Edwards well with this one. Creative's kind of been up and down, but I'm giving him a shot because it's going to be new. Yeah, new people running it now. They just need to figure it out. And I see a lot of people being like, well, this wouldn't happen under Scott D'Amore's TNA. People forget Scott D'Amore's TNA was fucking horrendous. It was worse than what TNA is doing now. All Scott D'Amore did was get hype because they switched the name from Impact to TNA. That's all they did. It wasn't some like magnificent show after magnificent show weekly. The weekly shows were still not. The pay-per-views for the most part were still mostly unwatchable. They didn't do much. The Scott D'Amore era in TNA is so overrated. It's not even funny. You had the TNA Funhouse at one point. That was hot garbage. Everyone that got a push was mainly because they were friends with Scott D'Amore. Don't believe me, Alex Shelley got a world title reign. Steve Macklin got a world title reign. His fiancée or girlfriend was booked as 90s Goldberg for some reason. Deonna Purrazzo, who was a great champion, that was a plus. That one was deserved. She was champion. She held on to it for a while. All he did was push his friends. That's all he did. The TV was not that good. What? Seriously, go back and honestly watch most of the episodes of the Scott D'Amore, even when they were doing the AEW partnership. It wasn't good TV. There's a reason AEW only wanted the Good Brothers on their TV from TNA. There's a reason for that. They have Deonna Purrazzo now. They don't want her on AEW TV, and I like Deonna Purrazzo. But they don't want her on their TV. That's why she's in ROH. They're probably going to land Steve Macklin at some point. He's going to be ROH. Josh Alexander, for the most part, is the good wrestler for the Don Callis family, but he's there to lose for the most part. Like, seriously, go back and watch the Scott D'Amore era of TNA. It was not good television. It was not as bad. It was worse than what TNA is doing now. The issue what TNA is doing now, a big reason of it, is they're signing too many people to short-term contracts. There's no need to sign people to 6-month deals. Get them locked in long-term, and so you actually have time to build people up. EC3 was there for like 2 weeks, and he's gone. You built up the return of EC3. It's not even there anymore. If I'm correct, I think the only person they have locked up long-term is, like, what, Eddie Edwards, Moose, and maybe Ricky Sosa. That's it. Everyone else, I think, is like end of the year or every 6 months they just re-up and they don't really announce it. So that's TNA. Hope you enjoyed that. Um, on to AEW. On to AEW, and it's been a hot minute. Um, the MJF dropping the title yet again before. The controversy behind it doesn't make any sense. Let's go up. It made sense for when Darby won it off him because MJF was white hot at that time. And it was clear MJF Will Ospreay was the money match. When MJF lost that title to Darby, he was no longer white hot anymore. When he won it back, he did not reclaim the momentum he had before losing it to Darby. So Omega Ospreay at this point in time is a bigger match than MJF Osprey. Omega at least has some momentum behind him. He had momentum behind him before he won the title. MJF had zero momentum behind him heading into that match, before the match, and after that match. I understand the thought process of not going with MJF for the world title at All In, post having him lose to Darby, which is still one of the most unnecessary booking decisions of the calendar year. It made sense. MJF had no momentum. So to sit here and be flabbergasted that, oh, why are they having MJF lose it all yet again before All In? Why is he not main event All In? He had what you're sold because MJF and Will Ospreay had two good backstage promos beforehand. If the end goal is for Ospreay to turn heel, which I think at the end of the day, that is the end goal. I think Ospreay turns heel and he takes over the Dark Riders in some fashion. But Ospreay turns. I think that's their end goal. And at the same time, also crowning Ospreay as their guy, officially. The face of the company, the flag bearer. Which makes sense. He is their best guy all around. He's best in the ring, and he's good on the mic. So I don't blame them. I don't blame Tony for this. What I blame Tony for is having Darby beat Max for the title. You had a better argument MJF main event and All In pre-losing the title for Darby. Once he lost the title to Darby, the argument for MJF to main event All In went out the window. It went out the window. And if you turn it to a triple threat, fine, whatever. It feels like you're just doing that just to get MJF into the main event. For some reason where you could have just had MJF hold on to the title and do some screwy finish, maybe at Redemption, and Kenny wins it, or MJF retains and it gets Kenny added to the match. Vice versa. You had other avenues to work with. I'm under the belief I do not think they're going to have MJF in the main event. I honestly believe they're going to do MJF versus Omega again, maybe at Redemption or MJF Ospreay Redemption. Just if MJF is not on Dynamite this Wednesday, then that tells you he's probably hurt. Because you got to start building some matches with Redemption here. A few weeks out. I think we're 2 weeks out. 2 weeks, yeah. No. We are, when the F is Redemption? 26? 26. So they got 2 weeks. Little over 2 weeks. Got to start building some matches up. I assume next week they're probably going to bring in, not next week, in a few weeks they're going to bring in a New Day. They're going to bring in the Most City Machine Guns. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought back Malachi Black. I just don't think it's going to happen. They should try and bring in Zelina Vega. They should try. I gotta look at this list of who the heck was actually released during that time. The Wyatt Six, I wouldn't bring. No offense, I wouldn't. Wyatt Six is not a fit for AEW. Maybe they go to TNA, or maybe they end up in whatever company Nikki Cross is running. But I don't. I don't look at them as here we go. Kairi Sane, I try and bring Sane back, but I think Sane is available to go anywhere she wants. Because I think hers was mainly a contract, not contract release, more of a, they just didn't want to read her. Paulo was the same thing. Santos Escobar, I think he's probably going to be AEW bound, if not CMLL bound. But I think we'll see a lot more of him. Zoe Stark, I think, would be big for TNA or AEW, either or. She'd be, I don't think she's like a world title contender, but she's a good depth piece. Apollos are Yuha Nation already in TNA. Alba Fire. If you want to build a legit women's tag team, you bring her in. Kaylee Ray, you bring her in, reunite her with Isla Dawn, and there's one tag team you already have set that has experience teaming together. Is anyone worth it from the developmental side? From the developmental side, no. Don't, no. Yeah, no. No one that got released from NXT/Evolve is anyone I'd look at. So yeah, we're gonna have the New Day come in. They're gonna have Machine Guns come in. Probably gonna have Sheamus come in. Wouldn't be shocked if Sheamus shows up on Dynamite this Wednesday. Santos, I believe, will be in the fold at some point, probably in the Don Callis family. And then everyone else, either I don't think they'll be there or I wouldn't bet on it. But they got to start building towards redemption here. They just have to. You have one match announced right now, and it's Willow versus Thekla, which very unnecessary. I do not believe Willow was hurt to begin with. I think they just needed to get the title off of Thekla at some point, and they did not want Willow losing before All In. Which, once again, I don't like the fact that they are probably going out of their way to give Willow yet another transitional title reign just to crown Mercedes. That's lazy. And it does nothing for Willow. You ruined Willow's big moment of finally winning a singles title just to have her drop it to Mercedes, where she won it back. We overrated it as a big moment, but we know the only reason she won it was because Mercedes had to go drop her other titles everywhere else and wasn't going to be around. Now Mercedes is back. I don't blame them for wanting Mercedes to be world champion. She should be the world champion after All In. She's their biggest name in that division. I get it. I don't like that it's likely going to be at the expense of Willow. And I don't like that Thekla, after making pretty much a cake out of shit, she was given shit and made a cake, is going to be likely off, or if anything, not in a major match at All In. Thekla should be the champion headed into All In, should be facing Mercedes. It makes no sense why we want the end goal to be Mercedes and Willow yet again, with Mercedes ending a transitional reign for Willow Nightingale. Doesn't make any sense. So, while we're on the All In talk here, what do you do with MJF? We hit on it a little bit here. I don't think they're going to add him to the main event. I think it'll just overcomplicate shit at this point. Maybe they do redemption. He faces, once I brought this up earlier, Omega for the title. He loses whatever, or faces Osprey for Osprey's spot, and he loses that. I don't know what you do with MJF. Do you run him and Andrade there? Do you just take MJF off the card completely? It really goes either way, but you just acknowledge it. MJF's not a priority for AEW anymore. And it's the same thing with Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland is no longer a priority for AEW. Swerve's just there now. Hangman Page is teetering on the point of just being there. Cope and Christian have been terrible tag champs. They're just there. The Hurt Syndicate is practically irrelevant at this point. A lot of guys who a year ago meant something to AEW, big part of AEW, are now just guys that are there. They're just there. And MJF has hit that trap. Maybe you do MJF Hangman at All In. Run that back. Maybe MJF Andrade. It feels like it's MJF Andrade or MJF Hangman. I don't think they should be doing Mick Foley. I hear that rumor a lot. Mick Foley should not be wrestling. Don't care what anyone says. He should not be wrestling. He can't move. So, that's that. I plan on recording later with a quick NXT review, but if that's kind of the goal, I want to do show reviews going forward because it fits the schedule easily, and then do one big show later in the week. Um, that's that. I don't think Saturday Main Event is going to be really much. It's a glorified house show starring the New York Knicks. And yeah, there's really nothing else right now to get into. And yeah, this is the All Out Wrestling Show. I am Brad BT Taylor. Adios.